morning, everybody. Please continue to make sure you have food and drinks on the side. A couple of little things. We're super glad you're here. My name is Natalie McLaughlin. I am here with the Local Impact Alliance. A couple real quick things housekeeping things before we get into all the introductions. We're super glad that you're here. Thank you for your service. My brother is a retired Marine, and I have great admiration for everyone in this room. So thank you for being here. Whether you are served as a family member, like we did, or you were in the service directly. So we thank you for being here and being a part of this great day. A couple of housekeeping things really quickly. On the side, behind my distinguished guests over here on the side, there's still food. There's some drinks in the cooler. We have additional ones. If we run out of something that you want, we can do it. The restrooms are, if you go out in the hallway and turn left, and they're in the hallway there for you to use as well. So feel free to come and go, get up. This is for you guys and what you need today. So again, my name is Natalie McLaughlin. I am here with Beth Mead from the Local Impact Alliance. We are a foundation that is based here in Southeast Michigan, managing funds for the Westland Community Foundation, Canton Community Foundation, Plymouth Canton, donor-advised funds, all kinds of great things, and helping to coordinate this event today. So we are just very honored that you're here and a part of the day. I would like to introduce first Mr. Goffard. He's going to come up and just say a few words. He serves the Westland community here in a couple different ways, and he'll share that. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. I'd just like to, as she said, I serve a couple of different roles. One, I'm the president of the Westland Community Foundation, which is part of the Local Impact Alliance that's put on this event for the past 16 years. And with me today are a couple of our board members, my wife Sandy and Sharon Scott, who's also a Wayne County Community College District trustee. So thanks for coming today to help support this great cause. The other role I have is I'm deputy mayor for the city of Westland, and I just, on behalf of the city, like to welcome you. And I know that this is a great program. The general's been involved in this, I think, since the onset, and so I'm sure there's a lot of great information that you'll be receiving today. So again, on behalf of the city and on behalf of the Westside Community Foundation, welcome.
We are deeply appreciative of all those hats you wear. Those are just a couple that you mentioned. We know you have more. Also with us today is Commissioner Anderson, and he has a free Veterans Day movie coming up that he's helping to coordinate, and so he'd like to share that with you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate what you're doing here. The organization is fantastic. I know you've been doing this for many, many years. Carol Ann's been very involved. I'm Glenn Anderson. Some of you may, if you live in town, you've probably heard of me, but I started doing these movies back when I was in the state senate, and then when I left the senate, the movies went also. So we're doing Tom Cruise's last movie, the Maverick movie, and it's going to be at the over at the Laurel Place Park Theater there. It's a very beautiful theater. There's actually, I've got 2 reserved in case we have a large crowd, and we're going to furnish the pop and popcorn. It's free admission, and it's not going to cost any of you anything, and you can bring one guest. If you have a spouse or friend that even is not a veteran, you can bring them along with you. But we do need you to register so we'll not have an overflow and not have enough seating. I would recommend to, as quick as possible, to go online. You can scan the code there, the UPS code. No, it's well, I have trouble with it, but I know how to use it. But anyway, it's you can do that, or you can call my office, which is right on this side. So these brochures will be left over here, the sheets will, with all the information. Thank you for your service. I've always felt a duty to do as much as I can possibly do for veterans. When I was in the state senate, I was successful with helping to get a veterans tax credit program going. And so you can, does anyone have you take advantage of that? Okay, great. It's great to see something that I worked on and was able to help get passed through the Senate and the House and get the governor's signature on it. So that's something that I feel was very important to our veterans. No one should lose their home because they're not able to pay their taxes, and especially our veterans. But anyway, I'll leave this one over the side. There's a stack out on the table. And thank you again for your service, and hope to see you at the movie.
Thank you, Commissioner, thank you. Yes, there's more resources too, as he mentioned, over here on the table, and our distinguished guests from the VA are here as well. So lots of resources for you when we're finished here. I'd like now to introduce one of the Local Impact Alliance dedicated board members. He does a lot in the community, also wearing multiple hats. Mr. David Hammond, thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. I see a lot of familiar faces here. This is the 16th Veteran Summit that the Canton Community Foundation and Local Impact Alliance have been involved with. We're delighted to have you back. It's my fourth, so I see a lot of faces that I recognize from past years. So my role here is I'm going to introduce everybody and then turn it over to them for their program. They're going to go about 40 minutes or so, and then we're going to take questions. So I'm going to do my best, Phil Donahue, walk around, let you ask your questions into the mic because we're recording it and it's also online today. So bear with me when you have your questions, and that way we'll get it recorded. So, oh, and I dropped this something. So first, let me introduce somebody that you know very well, Brigadier General Carol Ann Fasson. She served her country for almost 40 years in the U.S. Air Force and Michigan Air National Guard. She also has been a nurse for over 50 years. And since 2011, when she retired, she's worked at Legal Help for Veterans as its Chief Fix-It Officer. She's helping veterans and their families navigate the VA system. So we're delighted that she's back with us this year, and great to see her again. Also, a return visitor, Christina Darrow. And she's an attorney with Legal Help for Veterans, and she concentrates her practice on disability matters before the VA and the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. Her litigation has allowed her to pursue cases involving federal tort claims against the VA. And she's a graduate, a bachelor's and a master's from the University of Michigan, and she got her law degree from Wayne State University. And then, I just dropped it here, but we're also pleased to be joined by Catherine King, and that's Catherine up here. She's the public affairs, works in public affairs for the Veterans Outreach Coordinator. And so all these people are going to be able to take your questions after the presentation. Again, raise your hand, I'll walk around, let you ask your question, and we'll take as much time as we need. So let's get started. Yeah, of course.
Just a PS. Christina has been with me every 16 years in Legal Help for Veterans. And so we're a partner, we're a duo, and we're here to help you. So thank you for coming, and thank you for your service.
Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me? No. Now can you hear me?
Better.
Still no? Slightly better? Yes. Okay. It helps if I turn it on. If you can't hear, start waving your arms. I'll try to talk into it, but I'm manning the computer too, and so I can't really do two things at once, so we'll see how it goes. But like was alluded to, we are going to talk about a bunch of different benefits. So we have VA disability, the service-connected disability benefits we'll go over. We'll go over some non-service-connected pension benefits. Carol Ann's also going to talk about burial benefits. And then we have VA here that can talk about healthcare benefits with you individually afterwards, you know, your specific instances and things like that. But the goal is, just because we know that kind of, the economy's a little bit rough and costs are going up and the majority of people are on fixed incomes. So hopefully we'll go over some different programs that are available and maybe you'll be able to avail yourself of it and help out a little bit with monthly income. So first off is service-connected disability compensation, and these are the two different types that we have. So the first is service-connected disability, and that's where a veteran has a disability that was incurred in or aggravated by military service, or it arises as the result of negligent treatment at a VA medical facility. And the other option that Carol Ann will talk about a little bit later is non-service connected pension. And that's where your disabilities are not related to service, but instead it's an income-based program and a net worth program that certain veterans can avail themselves of. So, let's get into this and see if this works. So, like I just mentioned, service-connected compensation is where the disability is incurred in or aggravated by military service, or the result of negligent treatment or medical malpractice at a VA facility. And what happens is a veteran will get service-connected for their particular disability. So let's say they get service-connected for their back, or for their cervical spine, or hearing loss. And they get rated by VA based on severity from 0 to 100%. And obviously, the closer you get to 100%, the higher your monthly rates are going to be. And VA will add up all of your service-connected disabilities and give you a combined rating. And that combined rating, depending upon how high it is, gets you some additional benefits. So if your rating is a combined rating of 30% or more, you can qualify to receive extra money each month for your dependents. So for your spouse, dependent children, dependent parents, things like that. But just a warning, VA is done math is done VA's way, so it's not just straight arithmetic. So your 40%, your 30% doesn't equal 70, it equals 60. So I usually get a ton of questions on that, and I can assure you that when VA does math, they are correct. That is the one thing they do very, very well, and so they get your combined rating, and that's why it seems a little bit off sometimes because it's not done the arithmetic way. Other combined ratings, if your rating is at 50% or more, then you qualify to receive free VA health care for any disability, whether it's service-connected or not. If your rating is at 70% or more, then you can get care in an assisted living facility, either the state-run veterans homes or private if they're on the VA-approved list. And if your rating is 100%, or if you receive what's called unemployability, then you can also get dental care from VA. And if VA determines that you're permanently and totally disabled, you can also get CHAMP VA, which is health care for your dependents. So those are some additional benefits that you can get depending upon how high all of your ratings are combined. To get service connected, you need to show 3 things. And it sounds simple, it's not. You know, it's a little bit more difficult. But you need a medical diagnosis of a current disability. So you need something that's actually wrong with you. Or if you're having pain, let's say maybe you didn't go to the doctor and get diagnosed with a lumbosacral strain, instead you have pain, you also have to show that you have functional impairment because of that pain if you don't have an official diagnosis. You need evidence of an incurrence or aggravation of your disease or injury during service. So using the back example, you've got your current diagnosis of a back, and you have treatment during service for back problems. Or maybe you don't have treatment for back problems, but you were a paratrooper, and everybody knows that's really hard on your back and knees. That would be your incident in service, is you would be the paratrooper. And then the third thing you need is a medical nexus between your in-service injury and your current disability. So again, for your back, you need to have a medical professional say, yes, your current back problems are related to being a paratrooper in service, and it's not related to, you know, the natural aging process, or maybe a post-service car accident, or a post-service workers' comp claim. The other one that's kind of separate is if you are claiming a disability due to negligence on the part of a VA medical facility, you have to show this. It's that the proximate cause of the disability or death was due to carelessness, negligence, lack of proper skill, error in judgment, or similarly instance of fault on the part of the VA hospital. It's a lot to say, but basically you have to show that now, that they did something wrong, and it then caused your disability, or it worsened a disability that you didn't, or that you already had. You can also get service connected for something that was pre-existing service. You have to do that by showing aggravation. So if upon entry into service, veteran has a pre-existing condition, the veteran can bring a claim for service-connected aggravation of that disorder. And the standard that you have to show is that your time in service must have caused the disability to be aggravated, quote unquote, beyond its natural progression. Because normally, using a back disability, let's say you got back disability noted on your entrance to service because you hurt it playing high school football, and you had treatment for it, it was on your entrance exam. Just in general, when you have orthopedic disabilities, they're gonna get worse as you age, sadly. And it's expected that there will be a natural progression of that injury. So to get it service connected, you have to show that your time in service, those years that you were in service, doing whatever you were doing, aggravated it beyond its natural progression. And that's the way you're gonna get service connected for that.
I think that's right.
You can also get secondary service connection for disabilities, and this is how veterans will start adding additional things. So you first get service connected for your back, but because your back is bad, you have an altered gait. That altered gait causes you to develop a hip problem or a knee problem, then you get service connected for the hip and the knee on a secondary basis. So that's kind of how you'll see veterans start building up things, even though they maybe weren't injured during service for that hip and knee. And so that standard is where any disability is the result of another service-connected condition, you can get it service-connected on a secondary basis. And it can be where the service-connected condition either causes a new disability or when a service-connected condition aggravates a non-service-connected condition. So let's say you already have a knee problem, but your back is aggravating it worse than what it would be normally. Something for surviving spouses of deceased veterans is you can get the umbrella is called dependents indemnity compensation. There's a couple things that fall underneath it, but it's basically where the veteran's death was related to service or the veteran was rated at 100% for 10 years prior to death. So the things you need for that is you need a veteran status, so the veteran has to actually be a veteran. You need a qualifying family relationship, so you need to be either that veteran's surviving spouse, dependent children, dependent parents. If you're a surviving spouse, you need to have been either married to the veteran for at least 1 year prior to death, or been in a common law marriage to the veteran for 1 year prior to death. Here in Michigan, we don't have common, it's not recognized in the state, so that's kind of a moot point. But other veterans and their common law spouses, if they live in a state that acknowledges common law marriage, they can do this. So you have to be married or common law for at least 1 year prior to death, and either the veteran's death is related to service. So let's say the veteran is service-connected for prostate cancer because of herbicide exposure in Vietnam and passes away because of prostate cancer. That death would be related to service. Let's say the veteran is service-connected for diabetes because of herbicide exposure during Vietnam or in Thailand or Guam, any of those places. And they end up getting an ulcer because obviously you can get ulcers when you have diabetes. If it's really bad, it doesn't heal the ulcer. Because of that, they get sepsis, which is a blood infection, and they pass away from sepsis.
Yeah.
That death can be service-connected because they're service-connected for diabetes, which caused the unhealing ulcer, which led them to get sepsis, and that's what they passed away from. The other way is if the veteran is 100%, rated at 100% disabled for 10 years prior to death. So they can die from anything, but as long as they were 100% for 10 years prior to death, their surviving spouse, dependent children, you know, they can get a monthly compensation payment for the death of the veteran. This benefit will end if the surviving spouse remarries, unless they're older than 57, or if the remarriage occurred after January 5th, 2021, if they're 55. So hold out for those ages until you get remarried, and then you can get benefits still. Substitution is something where if a veteran had a pending claim at the time of his or her death, then the dependent can step into the shoes of the veteran and carry on that claim. And we have this happen quite often. This is a time limit though. So normally in VA land, you can file a claim for service connection decades after service. For service connection for cause of death, you can file a claim for service connection for cause of death decades after the death of the veteran. Obviously, the downside to that is you start to lose evidence and things like that because you haven't been going to doctors for that long and records get destroyed. This is one of the few claims that has a time limit. And so for substitution, the VA has to be notified within 1 year of the death of the veteran that an appropriate substituting claimant wants to substitute into the claim. So that has to be done within 1 year. If they don't do it within 1 year, then the veteran's claims that were pending at the time of his or her death ends. They don't get carried on. And it can be claims that are pending where you're still waiting to get a decision, or the veteran got a decision and you're still within the appeal period to appeal it. That's what I mean by potential claims, so it can be carried on. And then we have total disability for individual unemployability. That's a big long way of saying that basically your service-connected disabilities prevent you from securing or following substantially gainful occupation. So you can't work because of your service-connected disabilities. The requirements for it, you need to have one disability rated at 60%, or if you're service-connected for 2 or more disabilities, you need to have one at 40, and you need to have a combined total of 70. Those are the requirements. They have something that's called extra scheduler, where you don't meet those requirements, but you still try to put in a claim for unemployability. It just makes it a lot harder. There's a higher legal standard that you have to do for it. So the easiest one is having these rates. And basically it shows that you're not working because of your service-connected disabilities, or you can have marginal employment if your annual income's below the poverty threshold, or you can still work if your income's exceeding that poverty threshold if you're working in a sheltered environment, so like a family business. Obviously, they're not gonna fire you if you're their family member, although maybe they would. Probably my parents would if I wasn't pulling my wage, but that's okay. That's a story for a different time. So you would put in a claim for unemployability, and you'd say that your service-connected disabilities prevent you from maintaining substantially gainful occupation. It's an actual form you've got to fill out. And basically what you're saying with that is you can't work because of it. You have to show that you can't work both in manual and in sedentary employment. So using the back example again, you can say, oh my gosh, my back is so bad, I can't work because of my back. So VA's gonna look at it and evaluate it, and they'll probably agree and be like, yeah, your back's really bad, you can't do manual labor, we're not gonna have you, go out and lay cement, or be a bricklayer or something like that, or work the line over at Ford, but we think you can do sedentary employment. We think you can sit in a chair and, work from there. So the standard also that has to be evaluated is your education and work history. If you have a high school, diploma and you've spent your entire life working in construction, there's an argument to be made that you can't readily switch to sedentary employment. You're not gonna be able to necessarily be qualified to work in an office setting. And the same thing goes for people who work in sedentary employment. You know, you have to show that you can't do any sedentary employment. So it's not just you've been working, you know, as an astrophysicist and now you can't continue doing that work. It's any gainful employment. So you've got to show that you can't basically sit and be a cashier at Walmart, or you know, you can't answer phones at an office or something like that. But this would get you where, even though your disabilities aren't adding up to 100%, you would get paid out at 100%. And so not only do you get those extra monetary benefits, but you get the benefits that I talked about earlier, where you can get dental benefits from VA. The state of Michigan has some benefits where you can get, you know, property tax exemptions, you can get like a free hunting and fishing license, things like that. And then finally, special monthly compensation is an extra chunk of money that gets added on every month to your benefit for certain types of disabilities or hardships. And you may not get service connected for them, but you get like the extra chunk for it. So if you have loss of both hands, loss of both feet, loss of both legs, loss of use of both arms, it doesn't have to be that they're actually removed, but just rather your disabilities are so bad. If you have, you know, radiculopathy, which is numbness and tingling and pain into your arms, if it is so bad that you have basically paralysis of that nerve and you really can't do anything, that would be considered loss of use of both arms, and so you can get an extra chunk of money for those benefits. Blindness is another one. A big one that we see for our Agent Orange veterans is loss of use of a reproductive organ, because usually what goes along with prostate cancer and diabetes is erectile dysfunction. And so a veteran will you get service connected for it, but at a 0%, and then you get an extra chunk of money each month for the loss of use of your reproductive organ. Special monthly compensation can also be those in need of aid and attendance. And Carol Ann's going to talk, like I said, next about non-service connected pension. Non-service connected pension has its own aid and attendance little benefit that's being offered. The one that I'm talking about here is for aid and attendance due to service-connected disabilities. So if you are you're required to be 100% for one disability, or 100% combined scheduler evaluation for what can be considered one disability. So your back and bilateral radiculopathy into your legs, because that's basically one disability. Your back gives neurological impairment of your legs. So if you're at 100% combined for what can be considered one disability, or you have 100% rating for just one disability, and your service-connected disabilities prevent you or require you to need help with your ADLs, your activities of daily living, you can get service-connected aid and attendance, which is a special monthly compensation at a certain level and get paid at it. So like I said, this is for service-connected disabilities. Carol Ann will talk about the disabilities where you can get aid and attendance that is income-based, and it's for any disability, even if it's not related to service. So this is just strictly service-connected ones, but they offer that as well. So I don't know, why don't we, you want to do, where's Dave? Do you want to do questions or now or questions after?
Two questions after.
Okay, we'll do questions totally at the end. So write down your questions, and I promise we'll have plenty of time to answer them at the end, or you can just hunt us down, whoever's talking about it, and you can ask us our questions afterwards. We'll be around. We don't have to rush out right away. So then Carol Ann's going to go next for non-service connected pension and aid attendance.
So, I like to walk around, so, but before I get really into the meat and the elements of non-service, I just want to go back over a couple things and tell you, on the table, There are 27 ebooks. Ebooks are on,
Over there, table over there.
table over there. Did I say over there?
You didn't specify.
Over there. They are this piece of paper, front and back, and it lists everything. Today, Christina and I are talking about service-connected disabilities, non-service-connected disabilities, and burial benefits. But this has 27 other topics. Hearing, special adaptive housing, we get calls on all the time. A slew of information. They're all on Legal Help for Veterans. They are all free. And a book will look like this. I printed down our aid and attendance ebook that has a ton of information in it, even to go a step further. Now, Christina mentioned, I gotta put my peepers on, activities of daily living. And we get asked this question all the time. Why was I disproved caregivers? Why was I not given this benefit? So let me run down through the things that are considered daily living activities. Your inability to dress or undress yourself. Your inability to take care of your clothes, like in laundering. Your inability to feed yourself. You have loss of control of any extremities, whether they're limbs and you're falling a lot and that weakness, or you cannot control your bowel and bladder. Those are very hard to control. You need some assistance. The incapacity, whether physical or mental, you require care. They also look at your safety. If there is dementia and you are all by yourself, you need somebody to be with you. So in order to get this, and we're going to talk about this, the VA will look at anywhere between 3 and 5 of these elements. You need to go to physical therapy. You have a Foley and a catheter to control your bladder. You need help. The big one besides the falls, is you need help with your medications. And medications is a huge issue that we try in the nursing, I'm a nurse, in the medical world, we try to make sure your environment is safe. And so, as you look at these activities of daily living, I just want to share with you a call yesterday, and we get a lot of calls in the office. This family called and they were really upset that they didn't get approved for caregivers, which is another ebook, but it involves around the activities of daily living. So I sat down and he's kind of homebound. He could feed himself. He doesn't like to grocery shop, so he sends his wife. That's not a good way to answer it for the VA. Catherine, keep your ears closed on that one. But I asked the big question as they're getting upset, and I said, hey, Tom, do you drive? Oh yeah, I drive quite a bit. Now, come on. That is a high level of independence if you are still driving. So when I told him why he was denied 3 times is, he is still driving. And so be careful sometimes. I tell the veterans, you need to tell the truth. But if you are still driving, and then you're truly not homebound, where you need somebody to take care of you 24/7. So I was able to answer that question very quickly. Let's look at non-service. And there are some differences, as Christina said, going back and forth. Number one, and most importantly for any of these benefits, you need to be discharged with an honorable discharge. A dishonorable, they're looking at cases right now to give those veterans some benefits, maybe, but 99.9% of the time, you need an honorable discharge. The other thing, I've talked to several of you out there already. If you don't have your DD-214 in a place where your family knows, you could reach out and pull. You need, as soon as you leave here, you need to get your DD 214. It is your discharge papers. It is the story of the veteran's life. It will go from if you're entitled to a disability, if you should be awarded medals, because your medals should be listed on that, and most importantly, if you could be buried in a national cemetery or buried with honors. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. For this also, at least 90 days of active military service, at least 1 day in a wartime environment. So what I'm talking about is, let's say you went to Vietnam, you went to Korea, and they pulled you back. 1 day, boots on the ground. I was in Iraq, 1 day, boots on the ground, wartime veteran. So that's really huge and very important. If you're totally and permanent disabled or age 65, now this gets a little bit into Christina's venue, but anything that you had, and this is real important, anything that you have total disability at that point, beyond that, that you want to claim this benefit. But this benefit, as Christina said, is an income-based benefit, okay? Within limits, and then the National Guard and the reserves can qualify for this, but you must be federally activated. You should have a DD 214 when you're called to duty. Let's say you went to Iraq, Afghanistan for a year since 9/11. You would have a DD 214 that would qualify you. Thank you, Christina. The aid and attendance pension benefit. As Christina said before, for the veteran who is service-connected at 70%, he or she, that is a phenomenal benefit, because now you qualify for a nursing home. The VA will pick it up, the in-home care, the care that you need. But for this, it goes back to now the income. And this would include the veteran and the spouse or the widow if the veteran passes. But it has to meet the income requirement, and also this upsets people. We're not just talking about the veteran, and we're just not talking about the widow. It is the entire household. So if you worked at GM and you had a pension, but now you're retired, and your wife needs this benefit, you could apply for it. However, you look at all the combined assets. If you have a checking account, banking account, savings account, if you have investments, if you have stocks, all of those go into this picture. Total household, wife, husband's income. Then you get to exempt if you're living in your house and one car. Here becomes the problem. Recently, I believe in the past couple of years, there's what is called a 3-year look back. That means that, okay, let's say I want to get into this program, and I'm going to be a really good parent, and I'm going to give my son or daughter, I don't have them, but I'm going to give my son or daughter our house, okay? And I'm going to will it to you. If it's within that 3 years, looking back, that won't qualify. Those assets will be included. So you need to be very careful. And I'm telling you this because we help a lot of sons and daughters. The spouse, usually the veteran, the male, dies, and you want to take care of your mother. And so they say, well, she still has a house. And I tell them, run it out. Don't sell it, because if you sell it, the level for this income right now has been raised. It's $159,000. Christina, do you want to go to the next one, I think?
It's a couple down, it's $159,240.
Thank you, ma'am. Down to the pennies. So you would need to look at this. I think go to the next one. Okay, so there's the big number. 159,240. That means all of your assets, okay? You can't apply unless it's less than that. So I think that is so critical because when people are starting to look at this and I get a call, I sit there and start to quiz you. I do. You know, what are we looking at? Do you have a house? And I tell this, if the son or daughter says, please, let's help mom get into a nursing home, it doesn't pay for the rent. If you put your mom or your dad in, let's say, American House, and the rent is $250, $2,500, and they call and they say, I need money to pay for my mom's rent. You're not gonna get aid and attendance. Aid and attendance takes care of those health care needs. The needs that I talked about, the activities of daily living, is what you are getting approved through the VA. Now, it could be $1,400 a month, it could be $2,200 a month. The veteran gets a higher amount of activities of daily care for his health. Okay? I really want to stress that because it's not to pay the rent to move somebody into assisted living or independent living to take care of that bill. It will take care of activities of daily living. I want to make sure that I've got everything up there. So let's say, I think this is on another slide. Let's say you're sitting at $200,000. I get these calls a lot, Christina and I. You've got $200,000 in the bank, and the VA will find every single penny you have. Trust me. I've been through this with a CPA who says, they're not gonna look at all of this. His mom got aid and attendance, and then they booted her because he wouldn't listen. Investments are assets, okay? So when she got booted, they couldn't get it back in. They couldn't get her back in, and I wouldn't help him either because he lied to me. So the red flag went up. So you really need to look at all your assets. So let's say you're at $200,000. What can we do to do what's called a spin down? You would fill out the paperwork, and you would possibly call us, and don't let anybody tell you they're gonna do it for you, but you need to give them $2,000 or $4,000. This should be free. No attorney should ever, I'm a nurse, but no attorney, no financial company, nobody should charge by law for aid and attendance. So when people call me and I get that number, $200,000, what are we gonna do, Carolyn? I said, number one, we need to file an intent. You want to get the aid and attendance, you want to apply it for your loved one. However, I'm sitting at $200,000. So you file the intent, I'm gonna bring the numbers down, and what you start doing is, let's say you've got many different scenarios. You're paying out of pocket to have your mom or dad stay in their home, but you now have 24/7 health care coming in. You're paying $5,200. I just talked to somebody that said they were paying $6,800 a month to have somebody come in and take care of their loved one for 24/7. I know it's rather expensive. I'm watching your faces. But that $6,800, you could put it down and it goes to the spin down. But you have to keep the receipt. You have to document extremely well. Another question regarding that is, when they start talking to me, they'll say, but my son or my daughter has been living with me and they've been caring for me. I said, did you charge them? No, why would I charge my son or daughter? Well, can I pay them now? No, you can't do that. You have to literally show a check, a voucher, that you have paid somebody for care. So you start annotating all of that. if they're on a special food because of a special diet, if they are using Depends, undergarments, if they are, I'm thinking, if you have to buy a wheelchair for them, you have to go out and they need dentures. All of those appliance things, you keep your receipts. If you're taking people to the doctor, you're allowed mileage. If you're doing laundry and going grocery shopping, there's a lot of rules that you could bring down and do that spin down. When it gets below this number, then we could officially put all those receipts, get it all together, and apply. It's a very lengthy process, and I will tell you, a lot of times, families give up because it's not an automatic answer. I've seen some not get an answer for a year, and the kids will say, we pulled out of our pocket and paid for all these bills. That counts on the spin down, but you have to keep an accurate record of what you're paying for. Does that make sense? This is real interesting for me. I retired from the service in 11, and I've been at the office for 14 years. And when the aid and attendance came out back then, you know, ladies and gentlemen, it was only, you had to have $80,000 in your pocket to apply for this. So now the VA has said, well, you know, cost of living and everything. So they're being a lot more generous right now with $159,000 to keep this. And this is different than Medicaid, because CAID, you give up everything. So, yes. And so I would be very cautious on which way you're gonna go. Okay, Christina? Thank you. When I talked about the periods of war, this is really important because I said one day, these are the official dates for the periods of war. And if anybody wants to know, we are still continuing since 9/11, global war on terrorism, the global war, they call it, it's up there. We have not closed that window. So anybody serving Iraq, Afghanistan, if you went to Somalia, if you were pulled to active duty, you got that DD-214 in the era, you are good to go. I hate to say it, Gulf War I, I'm blanking.
Desert Storm.
What? Desert Storm. Desert Storm, we were sitting on the runway in that one for me when President Bush said, it's the end. So you kind of turn around, you know, you have your orders for a day, more than that because you're preparing to go. But every scenario is different. The Korean, the big one right now for us that we see a lot is the Vietnam era. Okay.
You have your book?
I know I kind of dropped a lot on you and with Christina, the differences between a disability and the non-service. Keep in mind, it's really interesting too, with any of these, when you go to the VA, they'll say, well, what's your income? Could you apply? And I tell them, Catherine used to work in eligibility. That question shouldn't be asked. You were going in, correct, Catherine? The question of how much income do you make? If they want to enroll.
It depends. So they may be subject to co-pays. There's a lot of moving pieces to eligibility and enrollment. So there's a lot of moving pieces to eligibility and enrollment. We first look obviously at military service. You think that's kind of basic? Just okay. So military service, I think everybody kind of knows what we're looking for. We look for automatic qualifiers, we call them, so special location, special authority, that kind of thing. If none of that is found, you meet the minimum duty service requirements, but there are no automatic qualifiers, then your enrollment will be based on income. So at that point, then yes, we would want to verify income. We can help you with that. It's honestly a very easy process. We do recommend that some people disclose income because it may be beneficial to them for copay purposes, but kind of a nutshell. But if you have any specific questions to your situation, please feel free to let me know. I am more than happy to take a look.
With enrollment, all of you should be enrolled. Veterans, you should be enrolled no matter what your income is. As Catherine said, there are 8 levels of eligibility. If you're a 1, a priority 1, you have a disability benefit 50% or greater. And as Christina was going through those, that's a really valuable disability to get, because after 50%, you get all of your health care. It doesn't matter, it's my heart, my legs, whatever. All of your health care will be delivered through the VA. So it's very prudent, as she said, you just don't know what you don't know. We talked to somebody earlier, and it's really hard. Somebody's not gonna come up to you and they're not gonna apply for you. And so this is why we do these programs. 16 years, all over the place, but it's really important to ask the questions. Go to a veteran service officer. In the area, we've got VFW, which is great down the road, DAV, paralyzed veterans, the Marines. Please, American Legion, please just ask the questions. And county counselors are also awesome. We are in Wayne County, and that's located in Detroit. Okay? So I'm going to follow the rules and not ask if there's any questions. And I'm just going to roll into burial benefits. So we've had a bunch of questions about these. And so once again, here are the eligibility rules. The veteran must be discharged with an honorable discharge. The veteran could go to a national cemetery if obviously he or she dies on active duty. Veteran serves at least 20 years in the National Guard or Reserves during a wartime era. I think that's a bad rule. I don't like that one because I know so many people that served in the Guard from 1975, yes sir, and until 1990. And if they served any of that period, you're considered peacetime. You'll never be buried in a national cemetery unless they change that rule. Spouses and dependents could go with you. You could either be cremated or you could go in ground. For a spouse to go, you have to be married or widowed. Getting a divorce does not count. But separated and not executing the decree will count. So I had a question earlier. Somebody said children could go. Dependent children. If you have a disabled child and is listed as disabled, then that child could also go. If you're going to be buried in ground, it's 5 deep. And I think we're going to get a little laughter, and this has been proven. So, there is a veteran who is still living. Okay, I'm going to say still living. And he has had 4 wives. Legally, 4 wives. They're all in the ground, and he's kind of been told, do not get married because the 5th spot is yours, okay? But this is nationally known. They talk about it when we talk about this benefit. But you must be married to the individual, okay? First off, if any of you get your DD 214. Here's the magic number again, the DD 214. And then start planning. I hate to say this, but you need to plan for this, so if there's nobody else left behind and your children or your cousins or somebody's trying to find out, where's your DD 214, what's gonna happen to you, that's a really sad situation for a family to be in. So what I would tell you is, get to a certified funeral home. When I was at the state, the Director of Veterans Affairs, we had meetings with funeral homes. We had them come in, we told them the protocol for how to take care of a veteran, and their families, what they would need. They notify St. Louis, hey, I got this veteran, he or she, I have their DD 214. It gets listed. So that when that call comes in to the funeral home immediately picks up the phone, calls St. Louis and said, oh, Carol Ann Fasson's on record. Okay, she qualifies for a national cemetery. Oh, my wishes are to go to Arlington. She's been approved. Okay, now, God forbid, but if my husband goes first, they still pull mine because I'm the veteran, he's a veteran, but it's my DD 214 that gets looked at. He could go there first and then wait for me, okay? So it's really important that if you go to a funeral home, that you talk to them, you realize that they've had classes, they're aware of what happens with a veteran when he or she passes. Now, they are, in the national cemeteries, I had the great privilege when I was at the state to be a part of selecting the land back in 2004 for the Great Lakes National Cemetery. What a phenomenal land and just a shrine. And if the VA has done anything really well, it's the cemeteries. They are beautiful, they're manicured. It is with strict honor that when a veteran or the spouse, the widow, is being buried. So take a look at that. An honorable discharge, wartime era, service to your country. The spouse could go, needs to be married. The spouse, if you're the widow, if you're the living individual, you will need your marriage certificate, the veteran's death certificate, to prove that truly you were married, okay? So when you get there, here are some of the benefits and that you will receive. You will have the honor guard ceremony, the volley, the sounds of the taps, the folding of the flag. You will also get there, it depends on if you are going to the National Cemetery or to a private cemetery, you could get a grave marker. They will do the headstone at the National Cemetery. None of that is at your expense. What you are paying for if you're going to a national cemetery is the casket if you're going underground, or if you're going to be cremated, the cremation cost. But know what you're looking at. Contact, like I said, the first link I think is the funeral home. Even if you don't want anything, contact a funeral home. Okay?
All right, now we'll take questions, and again, just raise your hand. I'll walk around. We're recording these. We want to make sure we gather your questions, and as soon as I see you, I'll come on over.
While we're still on the cemetery business, I did the pre-application. I got my name in there.
Yep.
And after I hung up the phone and stuff like that, well, I did it online, and then they called me back. I guess I had something missing in there. And I forgot to mention my wife. Now, how does she get in? Let's say,
It's a big omission,
hey,
sir.
like she's not like on my pre-registration, there's no name attached to his wife. Do I need to call back and do that, or she's on her own after?
No, she's not on her own. You sit down, you're not winning any prizes. No, that's a great question. What's your name?
Zeno.
Zeno. I'll remember that, Zeno. I'm calling her after this.
Well, it was till death do you.
The pre-application is really important. And you know what? If you got a great funeral home, they're gonna bring that up. And when you're there, you're talking about your spouse, or if you have a dependent child, and they're gonna ask you, who should you call? Where do you, I always do this, when somebody talks to me, I said, Christina, where's the DD 214? What drawer? Where do I go to? So that when that call comes, you know, you're ready. But yes, she should be noted, because what happens, she's gonna have to prove that she's your wife if you go first. And you're gonna want her there. And so, and it just happened to my uncle. So my uncle is down in Florida, and he was signed up to go to the Sarasota National Cemetery. Beautiful down there in Florida. But my Aunt Joanne went first. And so when they called in, they called up his name. Yep, wife, Joanne Flack, Roy. And so then they were able to expedite it. So yes, Zeno, please call back.
Thank you.
I won't give you up though.
Any other questions? Back here in the room.
My name's Roy Wilkins. My problem is, for 7 years, I've been trying to get a VA card, an ID card. And for 7 years, I keep getting denied. They say I make too much money. Since when does the money my wife makes, when she's not a veteran, I'm the veteran, why are they adding her money to mine?
Because it's a household, it's the total income. So I will ask you, if you don't mind, maybe Christina, do you have a disability rating?
No.
No.
I got great insurance. I worked for Ford Motor for 44 years. I got great insurance. I don't want it for medical. I only want it so I can get discounts.
You can get it on your driver's license. They'll put it on your driver's license.
I beg your pardon?
If you go to Social
He's aware of
Security,
that.
Secretary of State, with your DD 214.
I understand that, but there's a lot of
They
places
won't honor
that
it.
will not honor it. Lowe's is one of them.
I
Well, as when Catherine answered, and I heard many directors of VA say, you should be able to go and enroll. You're not asking for benefits, you're asking to get your ID card.
This
And
is
the other
7
thing
years.
is, sir, I know that Roy, Lowe's and other places, if you just want to get benefits, get it put on your driver's license.
I've got
Because,
it on my driver's license.
okay, that's another great way that should be accepted.
Why don't you just show up with your license and your DD 214?
Still the same thing.
Who's telling you that?
I went to Lowe's and I don't get my discounts at Lowe's.
Okay.
I'll
well,
get it at
so-
Home Depot.
Okay, so I would probably go, that would be like a customer service issue. So I'd probably go to the customer service desk, and if they're claiming that you're not a veteran because you don't have that card, I would explain that the state of Michigan checked you out and said that you're a veteran, because that's why you got it on your license. And if they have any questions that really isn't you, your picture in the, on your license, then show up with your DD 214. I mean, I think that's probably just the actual employee that doesn't really know what they're looking for. They're probably told like, oh, they're gonna have an ID card. So maybe see if you can talk to a higher up at that store to see if they have a different answer for you.
I have even had my granddaughter, because I don't do computers, we went online because one of these groups out of this folder here said go online and go through it and then you'll get your card. Went through everything, uploaded the pitch, the whole thing, never heard another word from them.
Well, another idea, Roy, I have is when you're talking about Lowe's and that, I go in and I give my phone number and they pull up, oh, you're a veteran. So have you ever tried to enroll in Lowe's? Ask your granddaughter, because it's not hard at all to get enrolled in the Lowe's system without showing them, because it's online, your ID card.
No, I have not done that because Home Depot is closer to my house, and then I can go there and get the same thing. But if I'm at Lowe's, I want to be able to use the system, and I
agree.
can't.
Well, I'm sorry. I've given you some ideas. I don't know that you should be able to go to any VA and get your card, even without health care.
It don't work.
Okay,
I've
I'm
got
sorry.
7 years of information in here where I've done that, and I still haven't got a card.
See me after.
Okay? Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Pelletier. Just a quick question. My dad recently passed in April, and prior to that, or 4 years prior to that, I've qualified for the caregiver program with the VA. After he became, too far along, we had to place him into a memory care center. We were looking at placing him into a VA center, but they were only in Jackson and Toledo. Are there any plans to expand that to more of a local area? So, obviously my mom couldn't drive to Jackson, or she could, but I mean, it's quite a task to go to Jackson or Toledo.
What's at Selfridge?
Pardon?
There's something that was just built at Selfridge.
That's the veterans home, and so he would have probably qualified for a state veterans home. That's a list. But let me go back a second. Did you say John?
Yes.
When you were caregivers, and hopefully, did your dad have a disability?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. That, wherever you placed him, memory care, wherever, should have been absolutely free. But you need to apply for it. See, that's the thing. And as talking to others, I'm sorry, because we just worked through 4 that I get, Christina knows, I get involved with all of this extra stuff. Yes, if you are 100%, remember, 70% or greater, 70% or greater, the nursing home, the memory care, but you have to apply. The VA, I'm sorry, Captain, close your ears again. The VA's not going to give you anything. They're not going to say, oh, Carol Ann, you're coming in here, you've got heart problems. You need to apply for a disability benefit. They're not going to do that. So I feel she's agreeing. I feel really sorry for you because all you had to do was call, and the VA would say, where do you want to put your dad? American House, ABC, memory care here. They would come out, certify, they would pick up the entire bill.
I find that extremely frustrating because we did work, obviously I had to
You're
go
a
through the
caregiver.
caregiver program. That was never mentioned. It was still for $7,000 a month.
And I know that.
And that's probably cheap these days. I mean, but yeah, that was never brought up.
I'm so sorry that happened because, and even if, I just had a recent experience with a veteran was in Grand Rapids for a wedding with his and her family, and he had a heart attack. They were able to bring him back, and he went to the Saginaw VA. I don't know why he didn't go to Battle Creek, because Battle Creek is associated with Grand Rapids, but anywhoosie, he was in Saginaw. They took great care of him, and they had a unit there. Ann Arbor has a unit too. But if the beds are filled, you gotta go somewhere else, okay? It's almost, you gotta go somewhere else. So he was there until he got a little bit better. They moved him into the rehab unit, but it was filling up and he was doing better. And so he had to be brought back somewhere else. They wanted to take him back to Grand Rapids, but his family lives right next door to Battle Creek. So they were able to transfer him. They got him in one of the units at Battle Creek, and it's going really well. But because John, he was 100%, he paid nothing. The family has paid nothing. I'm so sorry. See, these sessions like this is what breaks my heart, that families and people don't know about things, but you don't know what you don't know. Yes, Joe?
Here's a recommendation, just listening to these people. And just a recommendation to all the veterans here. And one of the things that I found helpful in all my 70 years of working with different companies and seeing people, one of the things that I do in the morning before I'm ready to, for example, come here in the general rows, I spoke to these two people and I said, these are the questions that I'm going to ask because they refer to me. I wrote them this morning or yesterday morning to be sure that I was going to ask them and not depend upon my memory. I do this every time that I have an appointment to go with them, and this is an old marketing ploy, by the way. Go see my doctor. She don't like to talk to me, but I have a note card in my pocket, a 3x5, and I have all the questions that I have listed that I'm going to ask, so that I don't forget anything. And this way, it opens up a conversation between the two of you. And what happens when talking to the doctor, the next thing she will ask a question, you say, my God, I forgot that. So it becomes a relationship between you and the doctor or anybody you go see. So that's a suggestion, is be prepared and ask yourself questions of what I want to ask them. You'd be surprised how fast, just like the gentleman that.
Thanks, Joe.
Hi, my name is Ed. I'm a veteran. One thing I want to encourage you, if you have not applied for disability, apply.
Did you know it?
The only caution is it takes time. It took me 31 months. I paid a lawyer to do it because I was denied 3 times. I think the natural thing for VA to do is to stamp it disapproved for 3 times. Then the lawyer had a higher echelon hearing, and I asked, I said, well, what happened at this meeting? Because they kept telling me I didn't have any new evidence, I didn't have any new evidence the last 2 times. They said probably they never even read the reports. So that's the thing you have to deal with, but it does take time. Right now, it took me 31 months to get my initial settlement of 50%. And then it refiled for extra, that's taken me 41 months so far, actually 43 months. I'm still waiting. I'm hoping that I won't die before it happens, because I'm 85 years old, and all of us, a lot of us are around that age. But my encouragement to you is to file, to file, to file. Go out to a VA office at Ann Arbor. You can apply for a veteran's card. The first time I applied, I was at 8. But I was applying because, like Royal, I worked at Ford's, and I was getting coverage in case Ford Viva ran out of money. Then I was qualified as a 6 because of income. But file for it. You deserve it, you have it coming, you're a veteran, and they may even owe you. And I didn't have much proof. I had 1 sick call. And he wrote on there previous injury. So I thought all these years, because he wrote previous injury, I wasn't qualified. I'm now getting 100%, I'm 90% disabled. You mentioned the facts before about how they do their addition. If you add up my disabilities, I'm 140% disabled, but I'm only 90% paid. But I get, because I'm unemployable, I'm 100%. And you mentioned something on there about sheltered income. See, there's a rest home our church goes to, and they keep needing a driver, but I can't drive for them unless I'm an employee. And I can't make money. But I can do that. Mm-hmm. What is the sheltered income?
So VA is going to find out about it because they match with the IRS and Social Security every year. So they'll be aware that you would be bringing in income. But basically, you would have to show that I'm assuming if you're gonna be driving for them, you're gonna probably be not doing it all the time, right? And it would be under the poverty threshold. If you're under the poverty threshold, that's not considered gainful. You could also, the shelter, you could make an argument, I don't know if you'd be successful, but you could say that you're the one who's setting your schedule. So it's not like, you know, you're going to a job and you're working 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and this is what you're doing. You're gonna be working when you feel capable of doing so. So I can't really give a better answer without knowing all of your disabilities, what they're service connected for, what your symptoms are, and things like that. But you could make the argument that, yeah, you're doing this, it's not a full-time gig, you know, it's part-time, it's even less than part-time, you know, maybe you're driving just once a week to go and help out. Or maybe see if you can find some place to volunteer to do that. I think that would be kind of hard though as a driver, because normally you have to have insurance and use certain automobiles and things like that you have to be in-house for, you know, an employee. But that would be the easiest, where you could just do something that's volunteer work. But if you're actually getting paid, it would have to either be under the poverty threshold, and you can show that you're doing it on your own time frame. So, hey, I was supposed to show up tomorrow morning at 8 and drive somebody, but I'm service connected for my back, and my back was really flaring up, so I couldn't do it tomorrow at 8. I had to cancel. But I did do it for, you know, Friday when I was scheduled to go there at 2 because my back was feeling better. So if you can show those things and document it, that it's not consistent, that it's they're making accommodations for you, then you have a better argument with it. But yeah, VA will find out about it, so they'll maybe question you on it, and that's what you're gonna have to show, is that it's not gainful employment, and that there are accommodations and things like that.
Thank you. One last word. I pay the lawyer 20%. 80% of something is better than 0% of nothing. Nothing. So I have to pay, you know, paid him a fee, and that's what I got. I tried it on my own, and I kept getting denied.
You know, the other critical advice, I've seen it, I don't think it's gonna happen in this crowd, but I've seen it with younger adults. If you get the TDIU, that's duty, a temporary duty for unemployment. Unemployment means, hey, I can't work, as Christina was talking about, you know, my back is hurting, I whatever. If you are caught and you breach that, and you're out earning money and doing things, I have seen their complete benefit. Now remember what Christina said, you could be at 70%, but you're getting paid for 100. I have seen that being pulled back, and the veteran got nothing because they broke the rules. So beware of what you're applying for and what you're doing, because I'm telling you that CPA in Chicago, I will never forget him. He tried to tell me that I didn't know what I was talking about. Well, please, they will find every dime, probably a penny, that you have that you didn't disclose. Uh-oh. Is your wife included?
Yeah, we're working on it. I have a question concerning TBI and blast pressures, overpressures and stuff like that. And this came up because I'm receiving some benefits through the VA hospital, and they send me the monthly updates and bulletins and stuff like that. And they're talking about shoulder-fired weapons, and they're telling these more recent soldiers that, hey, you need to go to the VA and report these blast things that you've been exposed to. And I'm putting up my hand, and I'm not that recent veteran. I've been exposed to multiple blasts on firing ranges. And so when I put up my hand and I told my primary care doctor, hey, you know, I'm one of those guys. And she said, well, you know, you've been out of the military for over 50 years. And I have no documentation because at that time is, so you're exposed to blast, tough luck, Chuck, suck it up. You know, it's like a non-issue, but today, I guess, through time, they said, well, there is damage being done to these guys. So I put up my hand and I said, here, I'm one of those guys, yes, I'm, you know, ancient by your standards, but I think it should be looked at. So she sent me through for a cognitive test. And I went through their testing and stuff, and they said, well, you know, for a guy your age, you know, you're not any worse than the next guy.
That's always the cop out.
How they put it, you know, I said, well, somewhat offended, but then, you know, those are the experts. So I went, and then just as, you know, they continue to have these bulletins come out and say about these blasts. And then I see 60 Minutes is the past Sergeant at Arms to the United States House of Representatives. His son committed suicide. He's a service member, committed suicide, and he was a trainer in urban warfare where they used blast, you know, they shot and all, you know, bombs and stuff, and they entered buildings. And so when he committed suicide, it was his mission to find out, well, was he one of those? And actually, it was a younger guy still. And so he's doing this investigation. I don't know where he's going with it. You know, it's not like I can call 60 Minutes, guys, how do I get a hold of this stuff? So I don't know. I again received some sort of bulletin that says these blasts. So I told my doctor, primary VA doctor, you know, is what else in Ann Arbor?
No, I meant, just tell her to document it.
Well, I think it's part of my thing because I complained about it, you know, I keep bringing it to her attention. And so she says, you know, and she's looking up, you know, on her computer screen, she's saying, well, here's the things that we do for you, you know, in these cases. Well, she did the cognitive test and said, I don't have anything else to offer you. I called U of M and they said, well, we would talk to you, you know, and stuff like that, but there's no test. So they told me, if you come up with something, let me know. In fact, my DSO even told me, I don't have anything, other than if it's not in your military record. Of course, 60 years ago, I didn't have anything there. Maybe the current guys, they say, well, I was exposed to this, so now it's their record, but we're supposed to do that then. So where do I go? Who's the expert in this? They keep telling me I need to bring this to your attention, or VA's attention, and we will service you.
Well, it's a couple things. So let me just explain, because you're touching upon a few different things. So if you need to get a diagnosis of a traumatic brain injury, okay, that's what a TBI abbreviation is for those in the audience, because of repetitive blast injuries and things like that. That is a medical determination that the doctor will make. And there really isn't a set test, like they're saying, for traumatic brain injury. What they do is they evaluate, like, oh, did you lose consciousness when you were in a blast? You know, what type of blast was it, and things like that. They're gonna send you for cognitive testing, and they're gonna see if you have a traumatic brain injury or if you don't. And really, in terms of treatment, there's not a ton that you can do for those that are higher functioning with traumatic brain injuries. It's those that have the more catastrophic that you're reteaching them to do things. So you can go and get treatment for it. It sounds like your doctor's done the testing, and even though you were exposed to it, they don't feel that there's signs of cognitive impairment or signs of a traumatic brain injury. So that's a medical determination that the doctor has to do. And it sounds like they're working you up properly. You know, they gave you the cognitive testing and stuff like that. Really, the other thing that it seems like you're touching upon is a claim for service connection for these exposures that happened. And it's okay that it happened 60 years ago. You know, the problem is that the records aren't always there. That's a different standard. So you need to get a current diagnosis of it. It doesn't matter that you were exposed to it, it's whether you have a current diagnosis of residuals of those blast injuries. If you don't have any residuals, then number one, you're very, very lucky, but number two, you don't have a viable claim. You need to have a problem with you to get it. So it doesn't matter that you were exposed to it, it's do you have problems now because of it? And that's a claim for service connection. So you need, just like what I went through in the presentation, you need a current diagnosis, you need an incident in service, which you have, you were exposed to those. And really, even though it's not documented, you have appropriate time, place, and manner because you're there and you were on a firing, range and things like that. So it would be kind of presumed that you were exposed to certain things. So you have the incident, it just sounds like you don't have the diagnosis with it based on your cognitive testing. And that's for a claim, that's a separate issue than an actual treatment at VA.
Well, I just wanna, I guess I was a lucky guy,
Mhm.
able to work and stuff like that and successful. And I'm now at the point where I'm fishing,
Mhm.
So a claim is not as important as as I look back on it now, they're telling me, you've got to be aware of this, is the brain fog, maybe not as sharp thinking, and blurred vision, occasional blurred vision, but it's repeating over
And-
years.
Right, and
Now,
that could
I'm
be-
piecing it together, and I said, is this an issue? I'm asking the question, they're just not giving me the answer.
And it could be, the problem is just what you just said. It's 60 years ago. So had they evaluated you 60 years ago, and they could see when you're, 20 years old or whatever, that, oh my gosh, you do have brain fog, and you do have these instances with your vision, and you do have headaches, or you do have problems with focusing, memory loss, things like that, then it's easy to diagnose. You did have the exposure 60 years ago, but we're now down the road and they're looking at you with fresh eyes now where you don't have treatment, testing, anything like that from 60 years ago. And that's why they're telling you, based on your testing, you're appropriate for your age because they don't have anything to go by. They can't tell you, oh my God, like you would have been, Albert Einstein now, but for the traumatic brain injury you sustained. They don't have those standards because they didn't look at it when you first got out. That's why it's easier, and they're telling all the veterans now to look at it because they've undergone things that you did 60 years ago. Now that they know more about brain injuries, they want to make sure these people are actually diagnosed in a timely fashion, and what they should have done with you back then, but just medicine wasn't there,
So, should I continue to pursue?
Well, I don't know, what is your goal?
Well,
Let me jump in here, we're at time.
Yeah.
Can I encourage you all to talk afterwards? 'Cause I
Okay,
want,
very good.
yeah, I just want to be, we're right at time, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. And I know Carol Ann has some giveaways that she wants to do, so let's get to that, and then our guests are going to remain afterwards, so I encourage you and everybody just to come on up if you've got extra questions that weren't answered here so far.